G'day. Today I thought we'd run something a little different. It's not going to be a podcast as such, but I found myself in a very interesting situation. It's been about 3 weeks that I've been working with this particular athlete before I introduce him. And what's quite unique about this situation is that I get heaps of people hit me up all the time, obviously from Sydney with it itself, but I also get hit up globally, and usually it turns into nothing simply after the fact that I condition an athlete and try and talk about what they're actually going to achieve from it, and really trying to put things into perspective that unfortunately for such a short period of time or any length of time that they may have in between their competitions in their off season, it would be debatable if they would get much gain coming all the way out here, and it'd be a very expensive exercise. Anyway, the person that we're going to be speaking to today I spoke to him last year, and I'm not too sure exactly if it was around about the same timing, but I think time was a little bit against us last year when he did reach out, or I'm not too sure. He can talk a little bit further on when we get into it, but it was a guy from New Zealand who plays a completely different code that I get a lot of business from. I still get a lot of business from the Rugby Union code, but coming from New Zealand, being their national sport, was quite interesting and exciting, whether this was going to eventuate or not, or whether this guy was just talking shit like most of the other people that do hit me up talk, because really it's a really damn expensive exercise for the amount of payback that you're going to get in return when you're probably if you're reaching out to me globally, you're probably pretty decent anyhow. And it's something that you're going to have to, that I try and actually talk the person out of. Anyhow, the enthusiasm was quite evident and obvious when I was speaking to him on the phone, even last year. And then come around again this year, this time he actually came to me with a plan and saying, I'm sorted, I'm ready to go. What's your price? Anyway, let me introduce him, and then we're going to speak further about what I want to try and get out of this. And one thing I do want to stress strongly is that I want to use this, and obviously the feedback that you're going to be hearing is going to be probably positive, but I'm going to ask him to really try and take emotion out of everything, because we have built a friendship, and a strong friendship in the short period of time that he has been here. It's actually quite scary how well we've clicked in the short period of time. But when somebody leaves somebody after a short period of time, you might miss them or say you miss them, but I actually feel that this guy, I'll be watching his career the whole way through, because I feel like I'm very heavily emotionally invested right now, and I think Becky would probably feel very much the same. But it has been a pleasure, and I'm going to introduce Ruben Love. And he comes from New Zealand, and welcome, Ruben.
Cheers, Rog. Appreciate the intro. It's crazy. For the last few years, I've always been behind the phone, watching these interviews and watching the podcasts and stuff like that. So, as you said, I first stumbled on your account when you were training Joseph Sully, as I played against him in 2019. And since then, I've been following you. I've wanted to train with you ever since then. And like you said, last year would have worked perfectly, but I didn't have time on my side. I had a groin injury that I picked up playing in Ireland, so I had to come home and rehab that. But I knew since then that I was serious about coming, and like you said about emotional investments, for me, being here is an investment in my body, in my career, and take away the finance side of things like that, I feel like it is a proper investment in my career and where I want to go as a player. So
it's sort of, Becky, I mean, you probably feel this as well. It's like, I don't know, they sort of bounce differently, the Union Cats, don't they? It's like...
they certainly do.
We have fun with all the NRL players, and not for 1 second...
There's some similarities, in amongst them, but I can see what you're saying. We mainly work with a lot of the rugby league players, and just to see they're very similar in the way that they actually do present themselves. But
does it have anything to do with the fact that they may potentially come from a private school background?
Union?
No, because...
Yeah.
We don't in New Zealand.
Yeah.
Oh, you don't?
Union's public school game.
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
Leagues only played, like you'll seldomly find someone that plays just league. They'll play Union for school, for club, and then they'll play league on a Sunday after playing rugby union on a Saturday. Some kids I grew up with played Union on Saturday morning, and then would play league for older grades at Saturday afternoon or Saturday night. No one really just plays league.
And league players here come from private schools also. So
yeah, but not as much.
there's not
as much. But
there's
certainly
not as much.
if you have a look, I mean, I could be wrong, and if I am wrong, then excuse me. I'm certainly not a person that goes and analyzes and goes and does research, and this is just more of an opportunity for me to practice podcasting. Secondly, getting more content. I'm just going to be straight up and honest. And thirdly, the story is interesting. The guy is so damn good. But again, as a coach, I just look back and think, out of all the guys I had to compare you to, you actually end up moving in with. Like, how crazy and how coincidental is that?
Yeah. The circle's always smaller than you think.
Like, so what was it in particular that was it? Because I see a very similar to prototype with you and Joseph, right? Very similar. As Joseph was with us for how long? It was about 6 or 7 months. I think he was with us for a while.
A little bit longer. Yeah.
And I think I've said this many, many times. There's one thing that no coach can ever. I'm sure I'd be flabbergasted if anyone ever said that there was anything wrong with the way he trained or his attention to detail or trying to be the very best version of himself. So,
and I think what you're trying to basically say is when Joseph came to us, we did think that he was one out of the box. There was no one that sort of compared to him in what he actually had and what he brought to our training. Now having yourself, Ruben, come along and
you scratch your head, you sort of, where are these people? But then it goes very similar to my mantra. I believe success is contagious, and sometimes success stands out and it's like, well, I can feel that. So I don't know, when you said you played against him, did you ever actually have a friendship as well?
No, we just talked after the game. He was the opposing winger that I was up against.
And what was this in?
He was playing for Australia schools. He would have been year 10 and I was my final year of high school and I was in the New Zealand schools team.
Yeah.
Played against each other, just spoke. We're on the same dinner table after the game for the post-match meal and after that just exchanged Instagrams, and since then I'll just congratulate him on things that he's done and vice versa.
But he's not a guy that's big on social media.
No.
And correct me if I'm wrong.
No, he's not. So we didn't really talk the last 3 years. It would just be on and off, congrats bro, or comment on his photo and that. But when I put up a story before coming here to Sydney about any videographers around, because before that I knew I was coming, I booked the ticket and everything, and I messaged a few of my friends that are over here, a couple that play NRL, there's 2 of them that are from where I grew up. So I sorted that accommodation on my own, and then Joseph replied to my story that I put up. I forgot to even text him that I was coming over, and he said, come stay at mine. And I was like, oh, where are you based? I don't want to intrude. And he said he's in Double Bay. I searched it up, and I searched the driving route from his house in Double Bay to Maroubra. And I was like, wow, that's 15 minutes. That's more convenient than staying in DY, which is in Manly.
Yeah.
As Ruben's been told, he landed at top shelf as soon as he arrived in Sydney.
Yeah. Oh, certainly. I mean, take away the environment and what Australia has to offer. And I'm curious. Like you said that you were always wanted to train with me in particular, or to come over here and try and be a better. Could you not get that in New Zealand?
I don't think so. No, I think what attracted me was purely because of social media, and with anything, not everything you see on social media is real, but everything I saw with you for the years that I followed you, the group classes, the clinics, and even the type of athletes that you have, it just always appealed to me. And being a part of a group that looks so focused every session, the honesty, because you're up front and you're honest, and you see that in the videos. There's nothing like that in New Zealand. Even sprint coaches are hard to come by, especially as a rugby athlete. You have strength and conditioning coaches, you have personal trainers, but you don't have speed.
Do you think that's a hole in the program?
100%. If it was.
But do you understand on their perspective, now that you've been doing intensive care and proper speed training, that there's a risk factor, as you know, and also there's also a time factor. It's like, how much time are they going to dedicate to it to get an optimal result, or to get let me rephrase that, to get a result. Now, you've heard me say that, and I've been on media saying it many, many times. And I do want to go back to what you said about, having the type of athlete that comes to me. I get nervous of the fact that people sometimes just say or think that I'm the best because the best train with me. And I don't know how you overcome that perception because it never really gives me a chance to show how good I pride myself
Well, I
in
think
what I
what
do.
a lot of what's not particularly on social media is your beginning product to your end product. And so you just sort of see some bits and pieces of it. They don't get to actually see the whole.
I think with that as well, the players that you coach from NRL in particular, they could go to anyone, but they choose you, and that's another factor. Even though I haven't seen your beginning, I may not have seen everything that you coach them, but I know the type of caliber these players are, and they could pick a few people, but they choose you. And
I get that as well, but I feel now I sort of got, and this is just bagging myself, to be honest. I'm just playing devil's advocate against myself. And now I sort of have that reputation that if you want speed, I'm your go-to man, whether you actually have experienced the way I coach or not. And I feel that the one thing that, and you may want to talk differently about the way I coach or your experience with me, is that I try and invest myself in the package as opposed just to the athlete, to try and learn what makes you tick and try and learn as much as I can about you. And the more I get to know you, the more I can actually find what ticks you and what ticks you off. And I think, I'm hoping that that's highlighted to you while you have been here, because it's something that I think that is overlooked. Okay, knowledge is free, and most people have it when it comes to speed. Maybe not. And again, I'm going to defend the people. We've sort of gone away from, you were saying when I first asked you this question, do you feel that there's a hole in the program as far as speed is concerned? And to the defence of the strength and conditioners or the performance coach or the coach itself, to get a result, it needs some time, dedication into it. But then I look at it on the flip side as well. Is like that. I know certainly in an NRL, there's a lot of time invested in wrestling, which is a defensive move. An attacking move, I think, is speed based, isn't it? You create space, you make money. Would you say, if you looked at your program now that you are doing with your existing, and who do you play for now?
the Hurricanes in New Zealand.
So in your program now, and I'm sure that this would be sort of the protocol everywhere you went, would you say there's a lot of defence orientated training?
In pre-season, we do a lot of wrestling. It's kind of similar to NRL. Big days, big gyms, big running sessions, and then you finish off with the wrestling. And for the way we do it, wrestling is more mental than anything. We don't go break up in positional groups. It's big guy versus little guy. And
But speed, I could take you to a dark place in speed, and you've already been there.
yeah. Well, I think there's more wrestling than speed work that we do for our pre-seasons. But not in season, we don't do any. We're just like NRL players, we don't do speed or wrestling in season.
So what is it, just skills every week?
Skills on a Monday or Tuesday at the top of the week. There might be some top-up fitness running if you need it. But
Are you allowed to do extras outside of your team and protocol?
I don't think it's allowed or not allowed. I think it's a matter of the S&Cs wanting to know what you do, just from a load point of view and to calculate the GPS. But
So would they support it if you went to them and said you wanted to do, hypothetically, say I was in New Zealand, you wanted to do a maintenance session with me a week?
I don't think they would support it. I think they would look at it realistically and say, what have you done the last few days? How much did you hit on Saturday? And take all these factors into account and just prioritise recovery during the week for in-season stuff.
So are you saying that the prescription that they do into the program is exactly what the program should have and no more?
Is that what I think personally for myself?
You think that, well, no, I'm not, because everybody's going to have a different opinion about that. Do you feel that that's how they would feel, that they would turn? So hypothetically, whether it be, I mean, let's look at something that has to take some sort of taxing on your body. I don't want to bring like kicking into perspective because it's low amp and the chance of you putting additional load. I think they probably encourage somebody who wanted to do extras as far as kicking was concerned.
Yeah.
Maybe more additional defence work or that. I think, do you feel that they would support that, or they would rebut it by saying the programming or the prescription of the programming that we've put together is substantial or is enough.
I think I'd support it. To be fair, I think it depends on the athlete too. You know what I mean? Like positional wise, and if it's for myself personally, I think I'd support it. Just the way that my body can react to certain things, and how serious you take recovery and everything like that as well. But
So are you saying it's going to be horses for courses then?
what do you mean by that?
Well, it's a particular
Certain
type of
people.
athlete. People have different athletes have different rules, different positions, different abilities. And whether you like it or not, Becky, I might put Ruben on the spot here. I've seen it myself. I've seen being close to a high-profile player, and then luckily I've been close to a lot of high-profile players. I'm going to bring one in particular because I know that this is not going to come back on anybody because I don't want to get anyone into trouble at all. But let's bring Jared Hayne in, for example, right? I can't exactly remember the year, but Stephen Kearney was the coach then. And Jared was hell-bent on doing additional speed training. Just like, mate, this is my game. This is what makes me work. This is how I tick. I don't need to be in the gym. I'm not. And he had exception. In actual fact, Steve, and this is no disrespect to Steve at all. I've got nothing but respect for him. He invited me to come out to Parramatta and to train Jared in front of him. And his first comments was like, why can't I get this guy to respond to me the way he responds to you? And again, I think it goes back to, I think this is a rule for life, to be honest. I think if you really love something or if you're emotionally invested into something, then you just give it a lot more. Like Jared had his own set of rules that had nothing to do with the way that Stephen Kearney coached at all. It had nothing to do with him being a bad coach or a good coach or not being able to deliver a message. But I think, and I was really proud of Stephen Kearney here because he tried to think outside the square and said, okay, do I have an unhappy player go out onto the field because he just wants to address speed because he believes speed is his X factor? Or do I stick to the protocol and say, no, you have to do what's the prescription there? So the reason I brought this up is because whether we like it or not, I've seen it many, many times, the really good ones get a different set of rules. And sometimes that can work constructively or catastrophically.
But I think that that's what they should be doing, though. I think that they should
why is
really
that,
look
though?
into the teams, and like you said,
But why should
because not everybody's robotic.
Yeah, but why should a great player have a different set of rules?
No, I'm not saying they have to be a great player. Any player. This is just any player.
Well, I
so
would-
look at their positions, like Ruben was saying, based on their positions, and
But I beg
basically
to
look
differ.
at what actually works best for them.
Yeah, I agree with that too.
Because what you're saying, if somebody doesn't actually have a passion or they don't enjoy doing something as well, they don't perform as great.
But that's just
So
life.
getting the best out of them, if that's actually going to be bring something to their team when they play the game, well, I'm all for it.
Or like in positional specific as well for me, why would a winger be training the same way as a back row or prop?
Yeah.
I know, and then you look at the
a
game.
winger's not going to be the person that loves going into the gym and lifting, like these weights and all. Like, I mean,
We
you
don't
look
know
at
that.
a gym. Is it as inviting for everybody? Not everybody loves going in and what they can actually squat and all these sort of things. But somebody getting out there and actually racing or doing something, running, and they can actually get their cardio differently. It's what works. It's the same just for you as well. It's what works for you.
Well, in life they have choices, but footballers have a protocol, and they've got to be able to be strong at a certain level and be able to run a certain tempo and be able to do certain things. They do have quantifiables, but that would be a perfect world scenario. Now, let's look at things that restrict them doing that. Going back to you, Rubes, is well, obviously resources. Right? Then if you started having people that were working in particular in position specific, then that would mean you'd have to have more staff.
Yeah.
It would cost more money. then as a coach, I'm just talking from my own personal experience, and I don't have so many different people in my squad doing so
But
many.
I don't think that you actually would need so many additional staff
Why?
because all we're saying that we're actually wanting them to do extra that the teams can't provide is speed.
But
It's speed specific. So that's the only thing that they would be doing different.
but no, but not
Your
necessarily.
wrestling's done there, your fitness is done there, everybody's doing that. The only additional thing that somebody may like to do.
But they do have a speed component. And do you actually address speed at all?
Yeah, well, we have strength and conditioning coaches, and
That
covers
have
the
to-
whole holistic view of strength and conditioning.
And again,
too.
so but then Becky, you got to think this way: does it require a speed specialist if the very most that they're going to be doing is 25 minutes a week, 1 day a week? Does it require a person who specialises in that area?
Well, why doesn't the athlete go by himself and go to a speed coach and do that outside of the hours, not while the team's training? But if the
if you're
S&Cs and
saying it's
coaches
20
want,
or 30 minutes.
Well, the first thing they're going to say is who's responsible for the athlete if the athlete breaks down.
yeah,
That's the first thing they're going to say.
Yeah.
Regardless of anything else, it's like, well, you know, how do we know? Nobody can actually just sport. That's sport, isn't it? Injuries happen in actual fact in the most innocuous times when you wouldn't even think an injury was possible on the field. How many times have we seen people do ACLs and not even having contact, just stepping the wrong way or whatever else? And so,
I mean, the debate would always be there, but I think that they need to actually change their thought process of it to start to reduce injury, because what they're trying to actually prevent, which is injury, by not letting them do outside work, but then when they actually go in and then they play the game, well, they're injured anyway.
yeah.
So could there be a prevention? Is there a time that may change?
We can just keep going backwards and forwards, and I mean, really, we should just be sticking to our own lane, which we do really well. But as a coach, as a speed coaches, you know, it is. I wouldn't say it's disappointing. It's just frustrating because we know that when you guys come to us, there is so many obvious areas that we can improve you speed-wise, and then it is the one of the most referred values when you talk to footballer. I mean, how many people talk about the fastest game in the NRL, fastest player in the NRL, or the fastest player in the NFL? You never talk about the strongest or who's the best wrestler in the NRL. And that's never talked about.
Well, how can you measure it? You can't measure the strongest.
You can't. I mean, I always have this caption where I say, well, does it really matter how strong you are? Because if you can't catch me, who gives a shit about how strong you are?
But I think it goes down to like I said, the extras. I think just basing on Ruben himself coming to us from New Zealand and then coming in, and obviously we spend a lot of time in the first session looking at the athlete, and we go back and we talk about what we actually see on a first session. What Ruben brought on a first session was evident that he's obviously been looked after somewhere through his career.
But is that a gift, or is it something that he's put together as a prototype?
Well, it can't be totally a gift. No, I don't agree, because based on my research of what he's done, or what he's been able to actually achieve and do extras for himself, I just think that as athletic wise and in running and in speed and what he's been at, what times and things he's producing with us, he's not a track athlete, so he doesn't have a background of athletics. And sometimes we can see that if somebody's had a little bit of a track background as a younger age, he doesn't. So what has Ruben done, or why has he different? We just came back from New Zealand.
It's a good question.
We didn't see Ruben, anyone that actually matched the description or could produce what he's showing us here.
Do you understand what she's asking? She's asking why have you come?
What is it that you've been able to receive back in your country in the years, obviously going through the ranks? Is it schooling? Is it somebody through the school system or somewhere? Or is it your own self? Because I believe you've obviously done, extras beyond what was prescribed to you in your own in your training and all. But what makes the difference? Because if we have to actually balance you or compare you to somebody, or if I had to, I would put him in a quite a high category.
So basically, I think
one of our best athletes that we have come through the academy.
So basically, what she's done, trying to identify in summary, is have you been a person who's gone invested in yourself and tried to work out how to be the best version of yourself? Or have you constantly been this type of person to seek whatever you think you're missing out of your program? Because from the types of footballers that we get presented to us, you're a lot more prepared physically and mentally
Both.
than we get usually.
I think I've had good strength and conditioning coaches, to be fair. I had one that I've worked with since I was 18, when I first left school and moved 2 hours south to Wellington. He was all about speed mechanics and everything like that. So even though I'm a rugby player and he's not a sprint coach by far, he's never trained a track athlete. He's all about rugby.
Does he study it?
Yeah. Oh, not speed itself.
No.
Like obviously.
But do you honestly think there's a big difference between training a rugby athlete?
No, I think
there is no difference.
No, I reckon there is.
In what way?
Well, I look at how you coach and what you coach to an S&C back
Okay. So, but the actual coaching of acceleration or coaching of fly speed, so what you're saying, I get what you're saying now. My cues and what I look for, my shapes and angles are very, very specific because I understand that a movement that is so simple has to be done brilliantly. So all the small things make a significant difference. Now, let's again defend these people. They just want a general pattern that looks decent, that is effective. Because to their defense, most of the guys have never had any speed training before. Just getting their arms and legs to coordinate is not as easy as you think. Now, but I guarantee you one thing, Ruben. We all biomechanically accelerate the same way and fly the same way, whether we're a track athlete or a field athlete. So the actual intention is the same. The execution has so many interpretations. So go ahead.
I just think it's not generic, but you talk about the triple extension.
Yeah.
You don't talk about the splits or the arm drives, ankle stiffness, things like that. It's talked about, but you never actually run like the 100s or the 120s or the 150s. A lot of it's plyometrics, similar to what we've done. Not as many, and it's more gym.
What about the recovery in between reps? Surely you would find that much more generous when you're working with me.
Yeah, 100%. But we don't do those big runs anyway.
So you're not needing that amount of recovery.
No, the longest I'll do in a speed session would be 40 meters.
Okay, but then how much recovery would you have till you run the next one? Walk back and go again?
Not as long as you get here.
I asked you, is it walk back and go again?
Nah.
So how would it be? What, 2 minutes?
2 or 3. 2 or 3 minutes.
That's pretty decent recovery in between.
No, it's generous, really. If I think back to something, it would be.
But are there objectives, or is the cues just run from point A to point B as quick as you can? Are you trying to achieve something when you're doing that, or are you just trying to get from pardon?
No, point A to point B, not how you prescribe it.
So doesn't it mean surely the common sense must come into play? Then there must be a right way and a wrong way to do it. Then otherwise, why would Usain Bolt or these top athletes? Why would they have a coach? All they would do is just set up a cone and run from point A to point B. That's all there is to it.
No, I think they look at shapes as well. That they talk about, but again, we don't have a period where we do speed work. It would be you'd throw in a session here, you'd throw in a session here. It's not tailored every week. You know, you can't structure speed sessions.
So have you done additional work then on your own, based on maybe what you've looked up, researched? Are you one of those guys that look at the best runners in the country, in the world? Usain Bolt. Have you looked at how he runs? Have you broken down? Because
like the Instagram handles, Noah Lyles Spellman.
Yeah, and you see, that's what I was saying to you. I wasn't privy to that. When I was trying to be a coach, like social media helps massively. You get to look at things, and people can break that down. And they also surf information on the internet, which I have to keep it. So far, heaps of good content here, Tom. I'm going to go back into his experience here. And then I think we'll just wrap it up because we've been going, 31 minutes now, Okay. So I sort of feel, and don't bullshit, I sort of feel that coming here, you would have been a sort of person who because I know how I was. I used to be hungry like you. I mean, I used to fuck up so many things, but if I was passionate about something, I was all over it. I'm either all in or no in. That's just my personality. You know, it's displayed, it's evident even in my social media. I'm like, if I'm going to go crazy, I'm going to take it to a level nobody's going to touch me.
Scotty Bellotti.
Absolutely. So I want to
It's a
know,
shame you weren't here earlier to meet Scotty.
when I was to travel overseas and going to try and, because I didn't have the social media aspect and I didn't have the access to internet, and I had to just keep listening and learning. But I used to try and write down what I was hoping to achieve before I came or before I went, like hoping I can learn as much as I can. Did you do that? Or did you just trust me or trust the process? Or, obviously your goal was to come here to get faster. That's the most ignorant question of all. It's like, oh, did you achieve your goal? Yes, I know that because we've already got faster. The stopwatch has already helped us in that direction.
And
But-
probably not so much specific of just coming to get faster as
No,
well. It's
right.
about taking home.
Well, this is what I'm asking.
Yeah, the
Yeah, well, that's-
tools
yeah,
that he can then obviously
what-
continue.
Go ahead.
And I think like the feeling of running as well, that's like a big indicator for me, whether the stopwatches was showing quicker or not. I didn't come here and write things down, what I wanted to get out of it, because I didn't know what I was going to do. You know, like I rocked up on my first session. The drilling started at 7:15, and I got there at like 6:30. I didn't know what I was doing. Didn't have transport. I had to go buy cleats on my first day here. Everything like that. I wasn't nervous. I wasn't anxious for it, because. And even though I was out of my comfort zone, I've always done that as a kid. I was boarding school at 11 years old. I moved out of home the minute I finished school. I know where I grow and where I derive success from is when I'm out of my comfort zone. And seeing how you coach on social media, seeing what you do, I wanted to be a part of that. And I remember the first day rocking up probably 4 hours too early, and stretching and meeting you, Becky, meeting your daughter Delta, who was coaching me, and then seeing Rog, and I didn't even know how to say hi. I don't know, like, I don't want to do too much. I don't want to seem like I'm gonna here to muck around, because all I want to do is just come here and train. I wouldn't have spent the money that I did. I wouldn't have left my family behind. You know, most of my mates are partying in Bali right now.
So what about the actual training side of things? Has it met your expectations, exceeded your expectations, or you are hoping for more? Let me just talk about, before we go into the individual part about it, what about the distances covered?
Yeah, that's
Did that surprise you?
me? Yeah, for sure. And it's kind of the way I think about it is I'm not sure if it's similar to you, but like the less is more notion. And like we don't run a whole lot in the session, but I know that every rep has to be what it's meant for. Whether
Are you talking about with me now? Or
yeah,
you're
no,
talking
with you.
Yep.
Whether you say you have to have these shapes, these angles, what you tell me to work on before the rep, because you don't get many. You get four or five, and the rest period obviously is so imperative. But I had no expectations. If anything, it's just been mind blowing.
Were you surprised by me telling you that your acceleration phase will get a much more significant payback return by doing overspeed, I'll refer to overspeed as distances longer than you thought you would cover, that would improve your acceleration component by having the resilience and the exposure to high velocity, and your body can handle those top end speeds, that the payback also comes to your first section?
Yeah, I never knew that. I was just oblivious to it. So when you said it, it was just kind of mind blowing, and just like, yeah, like. Well,
do you think that that's something that gets overlooked when they're talking about generic speed, or maybe speed in a team scenario? They would never. I mean, do you think that that's overlooked because they're scared of injury, or it's damn fatiguing, like you said? You know, it rocks your central nervous system more than anything.
Yeah, well, I wouldn't know. I haven't asked S&Cs, but I think the only way is it is injury, and can't really having to afford someone pulling a hamstring or something like that. Because I haven't recalled running a 100 meter, 120 or 150 meter sprint or having a rest time in between. If we do run those distances, it's 100 meters, 15 seconds off, do it again.
Yeah,
But it's
but
never
that's
sprint. It's
just-
not speed.
No, it's not speed at
No.
all. And I think that's the other thing that you've identified. So I think the other thing that I wanted to also ask you is like, and you've touched strongly on everything I really wanted to speak about, but it's important that I feel that I hope that I've been able to be in a position where I've been very conscious of doing this for you, to try and break down everything so you can actually learn to take some of these tools away. Now, the negative component of it is that you don't actually have somebody there that will be able to give you the feedback whether you're getting these shapes or not. And I think I've given you the scenario that how genetic speed works and how speed development works, as in whatever you've grown, if you don't do specific speed every fortnight, you start losing 10% of that speed development that you've got. I'm pretty sure that you're going to make sure, and I think that somebody that you could have a chat to is, and I'm not saying this because he didn't train with me, but I do feel, Joseph, because I think, well, we'll bring him up because it's the one person that you and I have in common. He improved dramatically under us. The clock didn't lie, crazy amount. Now, this is a young, raw Joseph Suoliti. Am I pronouncing it the right way? Suoliti.
Swahili.
No. Say it?
Swahili.
Is that it? No.
Oh, yeah.
Well, how do you say it?
I'm not Samoan. I'm Maori. So.
Okay. But you hear his name
We
so
used to
many
call him
times.
Swahili, but then now they say
The
Swahili.
commentators don't say it right. That's all I know.
Okay, but because and it's a touchy subject, Becky, because I know how people call me Fabri, and I'm Fabri. We've spoken about this freaking millions of times. I would like to give him the respect. I would love to know how to pronounce it properly. So, Joey, if you do watch this and I have said it wrong, please, no disrespect, bro. I got you 1 million. But I don't know. Just watching him as a supporter, because I used to be passionately invested emotionally in a team. I used to go for South, but now that I train so many players from so many different teams, I just go for all the players now. I don't have a team anymore. And just watching him, I don't know, I felt that his speed regressed as opposed to progressed, while he was with me. Now, and he probably wouldn't have been able to have the time to be able to do maintenance sessions or, I think he had a couple of injuries as well and he had some concussions, and just being bashed up, it's really hard to do. And if anyone could give you an idea of how hard it is to sustain, try and speed maintenance sessions throughout the year, I think he'd be able to give you a real idea. But I would hate to think that you've come all the way here and we've worked on all these tools and you've built yourself, the progression has been. Now, don't forget, this is a Ferrari already came to me. I'm going to send him back as hopefully a Formula One car. So I haven't got the luxury of a huge amount of improvement. I would hate to see that you would just float away back to your genetic speed. I would like to see that you hopefully will try and keep the maintenance going somehow, and I'll give you sessions to be able to do.
Yeah.
And all it will require is maybe once a week or once a fortnight that you go out there and do a specific speed session, just to keep ticking it over, and with actual goals and shapes and values that I would ask you to try and get, and you'd have to do the best that you can. But do you feel that I could be better in the way that I've delivered my message across as far as the prescription is concerned? And again, you can just be straight out and honest to me. I want you to be able to understand how to achieve shapes and angles.
No, I think the way you teach works well in tandem to how I respond to criticism, to feedback, and to being able to be coached. I remember, the first or second time, the first 4 sessions that I was with you guys, I was hopeless. Like, I'm a good athlete, I can run quick, but mechanically, I was horrible. And seeing the videos that you took, it doesn't look like everyone else that's in the class. So everything that you've said has always been clear to me. I've never not once understood what you've been asking for. And while I've been here, I've just been trying to attain everything and retain, I guess, everything you've said and try and do those shapes and the runs. And
you have been, and we're getting there. We've got to get rid of this head rocking up and down, but other than that, we're getting closer.
You're like that, exactly like that. Like that purely comes from never doing athletics.
Absolutely.
I've just been running, watching, basically.
Get yourself from A to B.
Yeah, just go to the hills, drop myself off, and my dad would drop
That's
me
not a
down
good
right
thing,
home.
though.
No way.
It's
But
not
it's
a good
better than
thing.
sitting on my ass.
Yeah, it is, but I need you to. I got to reprogram that as well.
Yeah.
Because then I had to, not that I did, but I had to make sure that Becky said, make sure it doesn't get ramped up. I can't hurt you. That's the last thing I want to do. And specifically, I want to make sure your central nervous system has recovered in between sessions, so you can perform at a high level for
Yeah.
me. So you got no excuses. My content, I've delivered, I think, just about everything I want. Is anything you want to ask?
So I'll just let Ruben probably, just for any listeners, generally when we got somebody that comes to us, Roger will usually tell me, oh, this guy or such and such is coming, and I'll usually do my research. I like to know who's coming to us, what they're about, what they've done, so I have a little bit of an insight of their background, and Roger obviously, looks after their
You got to
their
admit,
speed. So
I'm going to give
I'm
us
more
a rap.
interested in the actual athlete.
I'm going to give us a
So-
rap whether you do or not. I'm sure you will anyhow. But you got to admit, for an organisation that is not built like Optus or Telstra or whoever it is, we give a fucking damn good service as far as accommodating you, researching you. I try and be the best host I can possibly be. And honestly, I do it, and I think we do it just for no, I don't want anything in return. I don't need anything in return. It's just, I think, again, what I'm trying to show is that whilst I keep saying I do stay in my own lane and just coach speed because that's what I'm great at, I do look at a holistic approach as well. I try and learn about the athlete, learn about you, understand how you tick, what makes you work. Then I can come or regulate my expectation or put mine up. In your case, I've had to regulate it. You've exceeded significantly what I thought you were going to bring me.
Yeah, and just to
I've told you guys time and time again, me being over here has changed my life as a person, as an athlete, and I don't have the vocabulary to express my gratitude for it, and I don't want to go home, never touch on my speed. I want to go home and be a better athlete to show how good you guys as an academy are, and I guess repay everything that you guys have taught me. The time that you put in doesn't go to waste. It makes me want to be better as well with like nutrition, recovery, everything, because it all plays a part into how I'm going to be when I get home. Like I want to be good for you guys and to go home and see the work that you guys have done and make it and bring it back home to New Zealand so more people come across and train with you.
Last question before we sign off. I just wanted to ask you, and be honest again, you trained with my elite group. The culture of my elite group, having kids, did that exceed your expectations or meet it, or what did you expect? Were you impressed with the way that these guys conduct themselves, or you can be honest with us? I'm cool with it.
How old's Mitch? 8 years old, and then you have Tama, who's the guy, not Chris, who's 60.
Yeah.
But they all have the same mentality. They all respond to the feedback the same way. No one takes it personally, and each rep, like no one mucks around. It's crazy, honestly. You got an 8-year-old kid and a 6-year-old man training the same way. It blew my mind, because back home there's nothing like that, nothing at all.
So would you say that would be something you would see in a professional environment?
Yeah. But in a professional environment, you're paid a living. It's your passion. You've been playing it your whole life. But when you come to an academy where you have an 8-year-old kid and a 6-year-old man acting just as professional, if not more, than professional athletes back home. It's just, and it's kudos to you guys and the environment that you've created and the culture within the group.
I think it's also kudos to the athletes. So shout out to the squad.
Well, you've got leaders in there everywhere. Like I could name them.
Yeah, that's awesome.
And just if anyone doesn't know, just before we finish off, just a bit of background, I really wanted to just touch on Ruben's last year in schooling. What many might not know is he's also a top cricketer as well as union. So he had to make a quite a big, significant decision on which way he would go. And I've watched a couple of interviews and heard that he was great at both. And I think neither discipline wanted to lose him in their actual teams and all. But how did you go about making your final decision, or talk a little bit about your last year, how you balanced both disciplines?
Good question.
And what made you decide to go to the union?
Yeah, I'm interested. I'm actually curious.
Yeah, just to wrap it up quickly, I started cricket when I was 12 years old. I didn't have any cricket gear. I was at a boarding school, and you had to pick a summer sport, and it was either tennis, softball, or cricket. Softball were wearing tights. I didn't want to play softball because of what they wore. It's tennis. I didn't have any friends that played tennis, and so a couple of my friends went and played cricket, so I just went along. Cricket, there's not a lot of Māori participation back home, which is the culture, like the native culture.
Is that important to you?
Yeah. I mean,
why?
Because it's my family.
I get
it's
it.
how I've been brought up.
So does it? I'm just curious. Does it
Is
mean
about
that
following what your family's done in their upbringing,
Is it
or is it about
disrespecting
pleasing?
it?
Yeah.
It's them being treated differently and being punished for speaking their native language.
Okay.
This is well before my time.
Yeah.
And even before my father's time, but being punished for speaking their natural language and everything like that, and it's followed through down generations. And yeah, cricket, played when I was 12, and I never had a coach. I never had a specific coach. All my mates, because cricket, you have to be pretty wealthy to play. The gear's expensive and everything like that. I had a wall out the back of my house, and my mum used to play tennis, so she had a stack of tennis balls, and I would get home from school and I'd grab it. I wouldn't grab the rugby ball, I'd grab a tennis ball and just throw it on the wall, hit it, throw it and hit it, and that's what I'd do for hours until dinner was ready. And then even after dinner, I'd go out and catch it. I was always self-taught cricket. I used to love watching YouTube. I used to study the greats, Adam Gilchrist, Matthew Hayden, David Warner, Steve Smith, everyone. Not really any Aussie New Zealand players, it was all Aussie players. And yeah, my final year of high school, rugby and cricket were pretty good going through year 11, because we got to year 13. Year 11 and 12 was pretty good and excelled. I was playing for the top team in the school. And year 13, my final year was full on. I had this goal in my second to last year that I wanted to play. I wanted to be the first from my school to play New Zealand schools rugby and the under-19 New Zealand cricket team. One person has done that before, and I think it was Jeff Wilson, who was an All Black. And no one else has done it in New Zealand since, and I wanted to be, the next person to do it. And my parents did everything to help me attain that goal, and they dropped me off in the mornings, picked me up late at night. All I did was just train, and I got picked for New Zealand under the 19s first. And we came to Brisbane in June, I think it was, during the year. Got punked by the Aussies in the lead up to the World Cup, because it was the under-19 Cricket World Cup. And then we went on. There was a Bangladesh tour, but when the Bangladesh came over New Zealand for New Zealand under-19s, that was when the New Zealand schools side for rugby got picked. And I got picked for that, got the phone call, and that was the first time I had to make a decision of, do I choose the New Zealand under-19s tour, which was down south in New Zealand in Christchurch, or do I play the New Zealand schools team, which is where I met Joey. And I chose the New Zealand schools rugby just to say that I've got the 2 black jerseys. I've got the New Zealand under-19 cricket, and I've done it. Like
it's a damn impressive resume, isn't it? It's damn impressive.
No, so it was cool, man. Like, did that, and then the New Zealand under-19 Cricket World Cup side was getting picked, and there was a week where you had to go down and camp, because I knew I was going to be a part of it. And the Hurricanes came and approached me. One of the managers came around to my house and laid out this pathway of how we see you going to make the top side. And that was the last time I had to make a decision. And one of the managers from New Zealand Cricket came down to Palmerston North and met me at a hotel, and we sat down and had coffee, or I had a hot chocolate, and we talked about my pathway in cricket. And it was a couple of days after the Hurricanes came to my town, and the cricket manager told me, there's a pool of Ruben Loves in rugby, but there's only one of you in cricket. And all I remember was, I couldn't remember the exact words he said, but I remember the feeling of feeling like the inadequacy in rugby, and the way that he spoke down to me. I'll never forget it, and told me that, you're not going to make it in rugby. Like, you just stick around with cricket and you'll go through. And in my head, I would have backed myself to go either way. Like, I wanted to go cricket, to be honest. Like, I wanted to play for the Black Caps. I thought I was more proficient in cricket than I was in rugby back then. And I loved it, because it was self-taught. I never had a coach. Everything I learned was purely by myself and my father. But cricket didn't lay out a pathway. The guy told me I'll never make it in rugby, that there's a big pool of it, and I just wanted to prove
So that was your inspo.
Yeah, and that ever since then, and there's a few other factors why I wanted to go find rugby as well, with family issues and stuff like that. But I'll never forget the feeling of like, oh, this.
Any regrets so far?
No.
Good.
No.
I think whatever Ruben Love chooses to do, he's going to be great at.
Absolutely.
That's just my opinion.
Yeah, I agree.
But yeah, had to pick the week training with the Hurricanes over the under-19s Cricket World Cup, and yeah, like I never look back with regrets or what ifs. It's always cool memories, man. Like to be the first person that's ever done that from my hometown, and to let kids know from where I'm from that they can do things like that and achieve 2 black jerseys, which hang up on the school wall, which has like never been done, is crazy,
It's
man.
incredible.
And I think it's been also pretty good that while you've been here, you've got an opportunity to meet some of our guys as well, some of the pros that you've had. I think you met Curtly Beale.
Yeah.
You obviously trained with Bronson Sherry, Alex Young,
Jason Saab.
Saab, yeah, you had
Delta.
Saab, Delta,
Mundine.
Everyone. Did you meet? Was Mulatalo training with us when you were here? Oh, he wasn't. Okay,
With
he was
Kiwis.
okay. Anyway, that's a wrap for me. Right?
Yeah.
Okay,
I think
cool.
everything's good.
Good stuff.